Did you think it worked?
Did
you use it?
Well, I tell you, the biggest thing that helped me change was that if you keep getting sent off, you won't be playing anymore.
yeah. You won't keep your place.
Yeah.
You don't need a white tape to tell
I don't
you
need white tape to tell me that. So.
I'm not finished yet. It took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other.
So I'm not sure, lads, if this is going to be our last football show for a while, because all kicked off there just before we came on air. The Taoiseach Leo Varadkar has said the government has banned outdoor gatherings of more than 500 people. So we're expecting the GAA. They're meeting this morning. We'll check out throughout the show as we're recording to see what they've come up with. Look, if the government says they're not permitted, I don't think there's any chance GAA matches are going ahead this weekend with crowds. Whether they go ahead behind closed doors or not is probably the question. Gerald, I'll start with you.
So yeah, behind closed doors is a runner, I suppose. We've seen it happen last night in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it happen in the
see,
GAA?
that's taking the risk away from supporters, but it's not, I suppose, fixing the risk for players.
Yeah. It's
a smaller risk, obviously,
risk.
with 15 and the backroom team and 230, 60 people.
Yeah. If you cancel games for the 2 weeks, is it the end of March? Is the 2 week kind of period that the Taoiseach has suggested? Not suggested.
Till the 29th of March.
29th of March. So put everything back 2 weeks.
17 days, yeah. Put everything back 2 weeks. There's the April for club month gone, anyways.
Yeah.
But that's the least of the issues here. You could do the cricket Duckworth-Lewis method, whatever that is, if you understand it.
I was about to say you're going to explain it to us.
But yeah, I think the GPA are balloting their members, Conor, at the moment.
I just heard that literally before we came on air to see would they be okay with the idea of playing behind closed doors. But the most eminently sensible solution to me, as Ger said there, is to postpone it. And like I think the GAA have on their side, but because this is such an unprecedented situation, they can't really do any wrong if they suggest an extreme reaction in terms of, listen, we're postponing everything for a couple of weeks. Considering how the situation has escalated in the last few days, I think everybody will be okay with that. They can set the provisional date of 29th of March as they have done already, and then obviously monitor the situation as they go. But to me, that seems the most sensible solution now, because while you said you're taking it out of the hands of the supporters maybe by playing it behind closed doors, but it's still, the players still have to travel, and the players are, potentially still at risk with collective training and all that sort of stuff too. So I would imagine that, come a couple of hours when the GAA have decided what they're going to do, that they probably just said they'll postpone it until 29th of March and then keep it under review.
Yeah, I think people need to take it seriously now, because I have to admit, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, this kind of thing, it'll never happen to me, or it'll never happen here, or it will happen. And like, we're about 3 weeks behind Italy, and look at the state of them. So like, this is going to happen. And you'd be worried about St. Patrick's weekend when because the young people are still in denial. And like I was saying, it's not the young people that are at risk. It's your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents, that you'll go out and have a great day on Paddy's Day, shouting and roaring in a pub, and other people shouting. You might get the shift later on that night, and all the rest of it. And then you're going home and you're meeting your parents and your grandparents, and you're giving it to them, and they're the vulnerable ones. So like, people need to cop on really and realise that you just, for a couple, 2 or 3 weeks until we see how it pans out, you can't do what you want to do. You just have to take a hit on it.
You do, and we have to be selfless and do what is right, and play a sensible. Listen to again the report, like most people have heard at this stage. Supermarkets will stay open, pharmacies and everything else will stay open. Anyone who needs access to GP care, they're all open, but they're looking for you with the pharmacies and the GPs to phone in advance and to organise prescriptions that way, so you're collecting them when they're ready, as opposed to hanging around and stuff like that. But it's, in terms of collective training, that's I think it's an easy fix for the games. Push everything back 2 weeks, and they will find space somewhere to get the games played.
But you see, sorry to cut you off, but like, 2 weeks isn't going to fix. Like, if 2 weeks is to contain a potential massive outbreak, it's not going to. Everything's not going to be cured in 2 weeks. So a mass gathering of supporters in 3 weeks' time still won't work. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? This is the initial
And you know, it'll be like Christmas period again, where there's no football on for a few weeks, although that changed this year. But anyway, and everyone's looking to go to a game, so if there's nothing happened for 2 weeks since the match on, geez, we'll all go to that. They'll probably have bigger crowds.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you done in UCD? So you're obviously, like, you've just heard that statement the same as us. So
yeah, we've 90 ladies. 3 of our 4 ladies football teams were due to leave Belfield this afternoon, 1 in the morning, to head down to Killarney for the third level competition. So that competition has been cancelled in the last 10 minutes. So,
right.
The university is due to shut tomorrow, or from this evening from 6 p.m. And I'm sure I'll have an email or two from bosses when we finish the chat here. But we have about 4 or 5 other games scheduled, male games next week to be scheduled via Crow Park, but they'll probably be cancelled then as well. So just
country's going on lockdown for 2 weeks, and that's it. Like, I mean, the knock-on effect to the potential championship. Like, I mean, what happens to championship? Will it go back to an old knockout like years ago because we might not have the time? You know, I can see all these things on the cards. All games behind closed doors. Could you see that on the cards? Could you see the All-Ireland final in Croke Park with nobody in it? How bizarre would that be? We saw, don't know if you saw PSG and Dortmund last night, and just hearing the players shouting and stuff. It was almost unwatchable, wasn't it? It looked like you were down at your local soccer field on a Sunday morning watching, you know, lads shouting and roaring.
But there was a row at one stage. I think Emre Can tackled Neymar and everybody piled in. You could hear everybody was saying, because there was no crowd. But then the stupid thing about that is that PSG the PSG players, I'm pretty sure, addressed a mass gathering of all their ultra fans who had found some loophole that they could gather in the one place in Paris last night. So even after the game, although the fans weren't allowed, I think they gathered outside the stadium, and then the players just to thank them afterwards. But it just, the optics of it looked absolutely ridiculous. But
that just shows that how much denial people are in, and they're like, it's not going to happen to me. That's what
there's a defiance about that as well. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And the danger as well is that, like, for somewhere like Paddy's Day, it'd be like, well, sure, what else are we going to do but to go to the pub?
That's
do you
the
know
thing,
what I mean?
and I'm feeling that as well. Itzy and the children are in Spain. I'm fighting against going up to Dublin all weekend on the beer. So I understand when people are thinking this, and we don't want to be dramatising this, but, like, I mean, look at Italy. You don't want to go down that road and in 3 weeks have the state of them where they're all on lockdown. Just be careful for a couple of weeks and get it under control.
And I think you've kind of alluded to it too, Wooly. Like, in 2 weeks, is this going to be the end of it? It's not. Like, the numbers are steadily increasing in Ireland, but each announcement, the increase is not just 1 or 2 people, it's 4, and the next day the next increase then is 6, and then so it looks like we're going to continue to
exponential growth.
Exponential growth. So
you could do a whole show on this, lads. We could get a few callers on.
No matches talk.
Coronavirus hour.
Yeah, we could become Pat Kenny there or something like that. Donny Buckley, lads. This is a little bit of old news, but I said I'd mention it quickly. He was given the bullet really out of Kerry, if we're calling it as it is. You know, there seems to be a personality clash between himself and Peter Keane. His role had been reduced to very little. I think Tommy Griffin had been taking the defensive side of things. A really strange one. He wasn't part of Peter Keane's initial backroom team. He was forced on Peter Keane. I think some potential egos could be involved, personality clashes. Is it the best for Kerry football to not have him involved? Probably not the best for Kerry football. The best for Kerry football would for everybody to be getting along, and for Donny Buckley still to be in there, you know. So, like, I mean, I'm not saying whose fault it is. Maybe Donny Buckley likes to control things a bit too much, you know, and maybe Peter Keane doesn't like the fact that he's getting too big or too fond with the players. Who knows really what's going on in there, but there's no doubt it's a personality clash. There's no doubt his role had been reduced dramatically. There's no doubt that he's very popular with players, and there's no doubt that this is a very messy situation and heaps pressure on Peter Keane. Have I summed all that up fairly well? Or
pretty much to me, yeah. Just kind of reading a bit into it, because I wasn't aware of any kind of lack of harmony between, you know, Donny Buckley or Peter Keane before he was let go last weekend, and just reading a bit into it and said that, like, it never, like, there was always kind of a bit of tension there, and then he go to the States annually, I think, and he came back a bit later this year. And he said that I just read, I think it was Tony Lee in the Examiner was saying that like since he's came back, it's even worse than it was before, and he seems to be further marginalised than he had been before.
That's the word. He's been marginalised. He's been pushed aside. Like when you have someone who's as highly rated as him picking up cones and basically having no real role in the training. And apparently he jumped ship off the Jack O'Connor ticket back in 2012. So he's almost like a prisoner there because he can't be seen to jump ship on Kerry twice.
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes, like as you said, that when Peter Keane, I don't think he was, maybe he wasn't imposed on Peter Keane, but there was a condition basically. Whoever got the Kerry job after him, Fitzmaurice, they were going to be the Kerry County Board were going to advise that you should get Tony Buckley on board. And why wouldn't they say that, given his reputation, given what he'd done with Kerry before, and especially with Mayo in the few years previous? But sometimes in that situation where somebody is, he wasn't necessarily your selection, or he maybe was imposing you, well then it might have caused a bit of a reaction to within the camp with Peter Keane and Tommy Griffin, etc. But it's strange, and that's, I suppose the sad thing is that because he's left the camp now, that's probably the last of Tony Buckley's association with Kerry. And given it's sad, given what the testimonies that a lot of the players have paid him over the years, and said how good he was.
A lot of the ex-players, Seamus Moynihan raves about him, Tomás O'Shea, Kieran Donaghy, Darren O'Sullivan, they're just some ones that were jumping out at you here.
Aidan
O'Mahony was on it as well recently, so like, I mean,
but was he given a free role with Mayo? Just a few bits.
I think he got free reign with Mayo.
Tomás O'Shea saying that, wasn't he?
Tomás O'Shea was saying. But here's one of the stats. So John Fogarty had these stats. With Buckley on board last year during the league, they conceded just over 13 points per round, per game in the 2019 league, and they're over 18 points this season, the season that he's been marginalised. Do you know what I mean? So like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, if he's highly rated defensive coach, they've gone from 13 last year to 18 this year, and they're not using him this year.
Yeah,
on the face of that,
you see, a manager has to manage the management team, and he has to manage the players. And a strong manager, a confident manager, could see the benefits in somebody in the coaching staff. I know they're not staff, but some of them are paid or whatever. But you can see the benefits in a guy, what he can offer to the team. They mightn't get on as individuals, but once there's a common understanding and agreements that, look, here's what you're good at, I want you to really focus in on that. Yeah. And if the guys are performing well based on what the manager is looking for the coach to do, well then a confident manager for me would be happy enough to let him
get over it. Yeah.
But given maybe, I know we're only outside looking in, but from what we've been hearing, maybe the how affable Buckley is and how successful he has been, is there a fear factor there that I might lose the group potentially? If I keep him around for too long, and that the negatives are outweighing the positives.
Yeah,
you just make a call.
Even from the Kerry statement specifying that he won't be replaced, I thought that was a little bit of a dig at him. As in, we don't need to be. He wasn't needed. You know what I mean? What he's doing, we have the man to do that. And I didn't think there was immediately when I read the statement, I went, right, that doesn't sound. This was amicable, and as it turns out, it wasn't amicable. But look, we'll wait and see. Definitely, there's extra pressure, especially as we know Kerry have defensive issues, and they probably have defensive issues in a centre half back that is a very clever centre half back, or a stopper when he needs to be, or Keane O'Sullivan when he needs to be, covering, dropping off, and they don't seem to have that reading the game, you say, a centre half back organising that defence, because they have good attacking wing backs. They use Paul Murphy as the sweeper, who's not a sweeper. He's not able to play that role, and they're missing that good, clever centre half back, I think. And Tony Buckley or Peter Keane can't just make one of these.
What I've seen of Peter Keane and the couple of teams he managed underage, I know he had a great team with Kerry for a couple of years at minor level, but the last 2 seasons he seems quite offensive minded, Peter Keane, and he's happy for the lads to everyone attack
a shootout,
a shootout, and that seems to be his philosophy, and try to get a high press on, maybe if it is on, but generally speaking he seems happy for the guys to go at it. But again, you won't win an All-Ireland without having a solid foundation, and that solid foundation for me is someone in at 6 nearly all the time, a very strong midfielder, and a very strong full-back. But for me, 3-6, a very solid midfielder and a very strong 11, they're key, and now again it's fluid, guys will move in and out of position as the game ebbs and flows, but they're the core positions that you need to have kind of nailed down.
The spine of the team, no, definitely. Come here, this is one I was wondering about, because I was reading Pádraig Joyce and some quotes from him, and he was talking about last weekend. He says, we just took the weekend off. You have to be fair to the lads. They have lives to live, family life, and some of them to look after. It's very hard. Even travelling to matches, getting excited about matches, you're constantly thinking. You're using a lot of men getting psyched up for games. So he said we trained last Friday night and gave them Saturday and Sunday off. And then I was thinking, like, that's obviously a great thing to do, and the players really appreciate it, and there's a whole kind of psychology of getting the players on board, liking you and stuff. And then I was thinking, the league is so intense, and the evenings are dark, and when would you get, a Saturday or a Sunday morning to actually do a bit of work in light and a bit of quality football, you know what I mean? Football work. And I was thinking, it's a lovely thing to do, but is it a smart thing to do?
Yeah, I think Galway can probably get away with it at the moment because they're on such a roll. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of comparing the situations, and if I heard that James Horan was giving the Mayo players off, given the predicament they're in, I'd be like, well, I don't think that's a good idea. You have loads to work to do. Whereas Galway is obviously, they're comfortable with their style. They've honed it over the last few weeks, whatever. And he's just he's given the lads a few days to get excited about the Mayo game, which even if it goes ahead, and as if they needed to get excited about the prospect of relegating Mayo for the first time in 23 years. So I think Pádraig Joyce can say that because Pádraig Joyce can do no wrong at the moment. Everything he's coming out with
do no wrong in this show anyway.
You know what I mean? So I think he can get away with it, whereas it just depends on the various predicament that teams might be in. But as I said, I'd say just the way Galway are going at the moment, I don't think it'll do them any harm. That is if the games end up going ahead.
Yeah, so the benefits of giving him the weekend off, Ger, outweigh the negative side of not getting a bit of work done in the light.
Yeah, I fully agree with Conor there. So it depends on where the team is currently at, and if they're going well, it makes no harm to give guys a couple of days off and not having to put on your boots or whatever. Pádraig Joyce, he had a great quote today about the under-20 competition and the Sigerson competition being played in the poor conditions. He was referring to he was up at the under-20 game against Roscommon. Galway won well. He says, you wouldn't put your mother-in-law out on that.
Did he say that?
Terrible. My mother-in-law's coming this evening. Lovely lady.
Yeah, I'm just offended for all mother-in-laws.
Yeah, it's awful.
Right, a classic. Yeah, geez, he's funny on top of everything else. There anything Pádraig Joyce can't do. Want to make him president. Here's another one I want to ask you, lads. So, Fermanagh obviously at bottom of Division 2, and they've had no pitches to train on. And question here, is this an excuse for losing matches, or do they have a point? So for the last 3 weeks they haven't trained on grass. They've been using 4G surfaces. They've been training in Clocker in Tyrone and Dromore in Tyrone as well. Ryan McManaman says at the moment you can see in that performance that we're not shirking from it, but we're being moved from pillar to post. We don't have a base, and it's affecting us in the way we can't do what we want to. That's the crux of the matter, but that's not up to me. That's up to the county board to sort it. Do you have a point there, Ger?
He's a huge point, and again, it comes down to human nature and our desire to have a routine, and more than rearing your kids and getting them into good habits.
Yeah.
When they're out of routine, they go crazy. The more than adults as well. And as a team, where you're training senior to county football, you have work or college, you're trying to organise your fortnight every 3 weeks, every month, to make sure that you're as fit and as available as you can. But then you don't know where you're training a lot of the time, and there's a frustration and a tiredness that would kind of come with that, and those small little frustrations would certainly feed into the performance.
So like it will go under WhatsApp group, training's changed, lads, and then you got this is some joke, and then that negative kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then you're driving. I don't know the distance up there. None of us probably know them, but then you're onto your boss, or you're getting out of a lecture early, or I've actually worked through my lunch now and I have to go at 4 as opposed to I was okay to leave at 5.
I get you. It might be
home all hours and stuff.
And it probably ties in with Pádraig Joyce's point about mentally, getting a break. These fellas probably aren't getting a break, and then training can become a bit of a hassle the longer that continues. And in small doses you can put up with it, but long term I think that would is not good.
I just thought the AstroTurf pitches might make a bit of a difference. Like we've even in the last couple of weeks have played an AstroTurf twice as opposed to the normal pitch, especially at this time of year. it gives you a false impression. In
The
terms
bounce
of, like,
is ridiculous.
The bounce particularly, even the distances you can kick the ball like are a bit different, and then you go on to a pitch that's probably in terrible nick given the weather we have. So like all the preparation you've been doing has been on Astro, and then going into
those 4Gs are dread. We used to train them on with Parnell's, and it's no comparison to winter football. It's actually the height of summer football you're training on, and then going out on a wet pitch. Like, I mean,
and also your body is knackered.
It's hard on the knees too.
Hard and everything. So that and there is definitely correlation between training on the Astro and going on to a soft grass pitch. People will pick up soft tissue injuries.
No, that makes sense. Okay, so he was talking about Fermanagh's style then, which has obviously been evolving, and it's taken him a little while to come out of it. Like, I mean, they were pretty extreme for the last 2 or 3 years. For Gallagher,
Rory Gallagher, I think it was 3.
Two maybe.
Okay.
I will see on it with any 2 or 3 guaranteed. So he says you look at the defensive teams, and yes, they get you to a certain point, but they don't get you to a point of where you want to be. There probably has been a sea change in thinking, and you look at the new back pass of the goalkeeper being banned. There has been more emphasis on attacking, and you have to realise a lot of the teams are catching on now to how to play against defensive teams. They're not as stupid anymore. So it's pretty much what we've been saying on the show. Like, the defensive game plans are gone really, because teams figure them out, and when it's figured out and the counter attack is figured out, you can't get scores. So number one, you're not as effective at keeping the score down, and you're not effective at scoring. So I think it's fair to say, and isn't it fair to say that I don't think the rule changes change this anything. I think that this just was coming out of it anyways, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Like, the only thing I'll say is that Rory Gallagher might look at that and say, well, my team mightn't have conceded 3-14 against Armagh, but like, I'll fully subscribe to Ryan McMillan's theory, and the more teams that are like subscribing to that kind of attacking philosophy, the better, you know. But it's just going to be hard. It's like, I would imagine it's hard if you're in Fermanagh. Like, Galway have seemed to manage it seamlessly, but like, if you're used to that way of playing for so long, to just adapt to a different style of football immediately, you must have, when you're used to routines.
But
and
it just shows how what a good job Pádraig Joyce has done. Like, when you think about him, we're talking about what he hasn't had much time with the dark evenings to actually. I'd say they're just more talking about it. They're probably doing minimal love. Lads, I want to see you moving forward more. Now, they've got great natural footballers, so, and they play like probably don't play probably kicking game with their clubs, so maybe it's easier for him.
Well, and it ties in with the enjoyment points. I think for me is that, say, an up and coming Fermanagh footballer or Donegal or whomever, like, you don't go out to the back garden as a teenager or up to the local field and knock a lot of crack out of organising a packed defence with your mates, like, you know, playing bulldog. But you're trying to shoot from the corner flag, and you're having a bit of banter, and that's where the enjoyment comes from. And again, you have to tap into the psychology of the player. And if I don't know how much enjoyment these players actually get playing packed defences. And I know a couple of teams have won, and probably Donegal have won their All-Ireland Famage, and could have had another one.
See, they played an enjoying counter-attack game.
Yeah, and I did, in fairness, and I'm probably overly critical of maybe the mass defences, but I think for players it's just more enjoyable. Unless you're one of these full-backs we probably talked about, who are, all of these lads are a bit mad because like a different sport.
They're a rare breed,
So imagine 10 young fellas out with the jumpers for goalposts, and they go, right, we'll go 7 against 3. We're going to have 7 in defence and see can you score against it. It just wouldn't happen. Like, it'd be like, the 3 would go home.
And that's where was at when I was right?
And you'd be knocking a bit of crack trying to take your man on, and even whatever soccer World Cup or whatever game, you know, the games used to play. Like,
it's all about attacking and enjoying it, isn't it?
Yeah. Johnny Giles actually, I know a bit of a tangent here, but we probably have nothing to talk about now because we don't match him. But there's a good piece on, as was your previous employer, Wooly Satanta, before he went, but did a lovely documentary on growing up in North Inner City, just down with the markets. But he was making a point on there's very few natural out and out footballers now in soccer. He was talking about who just play off the cuff, where they're playing on the road. And he was showing where he used to play, and that was the goal where the railings was. But if the ball hit the railings, the ball could bounce any direction, and you're reacting very quickly, and you're hitting the ball off the path or the curb. And he said you just develop these little pathways of trying to manoeuvre around someone. And he was saying, because I'm a small guy, that I needed to be more nimble and think my way out of trouble, as opposed to bigger burly fellas, although he was tough as well. Some of the clips we've seen. But,
street footballers, he called them.
Street,
in South America as well. A lot of kids growing up would have played in the streets, whatever, because they wouldn't have the facilities. So. No, it's a good point.
I remember I was over in Rio, and I was traveling. I was on my own, so you go down to the beach. I was sitting around, whatever, and there'd be different soccer games going on all over the beach. And one day, anyways, I was sitting there and they called me. Some lad had gone home, so I went over, joined in.
God, you would.
Oh my God! So imagine how useless you would be on playing on dry sand.
Yeah.
So I just kept giving away the ball. They're being friendly enough to me or whatever. And then I went, right, well, I need to do something here. So I turned into a hatchet man. So I started rattling into lads and using kind of a bit of physicality. And suddenly my team loved me. And the other, but then some other lads showed up and they told me to go on again. So I sat on the outside watching the match again, just watching it. And then I got back in another time.
Bring in the Irish fella.
Bring in the hatchet man. But these lads playing just on loose sand, the skill and everything they had, like just normal, like Flavella fellas, do you know, just playing or whatever. But it was gas. Moving on from that, lads. With two of the greatest GAA cliches during the week, lads, and a new one from Stephen Cohen. It's not a new one, but I think Tomás O'Shea is to blame for this one. And he says, Stephen Cohen says, all you can do is focus on the controllables, and that's what we've been doing. It's a beautiful one just to throw out there. You can only control the controllables.
He got one word wrong there. He's meant to say control instead of focus.
You have to control the controllables. I think it was Tomás O'Shea, but he just threw it out. And then Pádraig Joyce, who I've been raving about, used one of the greatest GAA cliches. He says, we've Mayo and Dublin left. They've been the best two teams in the country for the last 10 years. So we're under no illusions about the task ahead of us. Under no illusions. That's probably my favourite cliche.
Well, you could throw in the mother-in-law
quote
there now as well.
That balanced
it's up on 42 or something like that.
Yeah, he was aware that he did the cliche, so he said, I have to give him something better now.
Come here, before we go, lads, the Kilcommon video. We didn't have a chance to comment on this either. So there was a bit of outrage. I was looking at this, and I looked at Off the Ball had it on Twitter, and they had the quote, "Get up, you CUNT," or something, or "Keep them down, you CUNT." And I just saw the video and went, Jesus, what's this? I was expecting some fella to be surrounded, getting beaten up, or some horrific fight or something. And then I watched the video and went, all right, the language is a bit uncomfortable, the CUNT word, but like there's nothing major going on here at all. It was like, why are they trying to make a big deal out of this? Like, and then I had a fella on Twitter saying, oh, would you let your son be trained by him? I says, yeah, I would. I'd have no problem with Mannix being trained by him. As long as he wasn't calling Mannix that, like he's just shouting it at everyone. He's just a generic loose cannon coach that, in my opinion, will toughen a lot of these young lads up. And I don't think there's too many parents that grew up in GAA would have any problem sending their children to somebody like that.
That's a real rugby drill. Having played the schools rugby, we used to do that type of thing the whole time. You'd be literally lying on your back or on your stomach, someone on top of you or two, and do your best to get up. The language, I suppose you can probably maybe work on that a bit, but then when you get in the zone, sometimes as a coach or as a player, it is what it is.
It looked worse kind of conditions as well. It looked worse because it was.
But some people were saying it was a warm up. It was a stupid warm up. If that had to be part of the session, they had to be well warmed up rather than be starting off in the.
You'd hope so, rather than being thrown in shit.
No, but it was some sort of I don't know, like some sort of a strength exercise, right? But like he was really in character because all this, and then at the end he says change. He just completely, completely changed his tone of voice from like it's almost like he was
the only mistake he looked
with a hand passing drill now, lads.
the angle looked like he was filming it himself. Do you know what I mean? And it looks, if he puts that up on WhatsApp, it's gone. Like, do you know, it's gone.
Was that Tony Buckley actually? Was it?
That's why he was gone. Coincidence. I think.
But the funny thing about this is, and look, the CUNT, the language, he was going way over the top on the language. Yeah. But he's the type of fella, and I was thinking of this watching it, like the lads know that he's a little bit probably of a loose cannon and he does hard training and he'd punish you if you don't. There's nothing wrong with that. I was thinking these young fellas will be sitting in a pub in about 5 or 6 years' time and the conversation will go dry and they might think of going home and one of them will bring up stories of this mad lad and suddenly the pints will start flowing and they'll end up in coppers. Like, I mean, it'll be a memory, and like, I mean, some of it might be like, he's the type of manager, I'm sure, that if you don't do it exactly right, there's 10 more sprints and you're but that toughens these lads up and stuff like that too, right?
And it was probably just like I'd say it was just a departure from their usual things, like, oh, we're going to try this thing, whatever. And as you said, like, I think all clubs have that type of character, you know, that kind of just gets people going, gets people laughing, and as you said, does stuff that people will be talking about in a couple of years' time. The only issue is it was the repeated language. It just sounded, and I genuinely think it's because it was in muck and shit that it looked worse.
Maybe, yeah.
We thrown a favourite quote of one of the best coaches, managers I ever had. I better not name him. But when fellas were feeling sorry for themselves, he used to say, the only place you'll find sympathy here is in a dictionary between shit and syphilis. And that's what he said. Now, whether you can put that on, I don't know on the air. But that's what he used to say. But this fella was... this is a great fella.
That's a new one on me, I have to say.
Yeah, I never heard it. Yeah. We used to get every couple of weeks if the intensity was dropping off a bit and fellas were going through the motions, you know.
Right. Okay. Listen, there's no doubt. There's all sorts of characters, and there's nothing wrong with them. That's basically the message. Right. We'll come back and we'll look at some of these matches that might not go ahead. All right, so Galway versus Mayo. But before we talk about Galway versus Mayo, Conor, it looks like Dublin County Board have called off all club activity until
29th of March, yeah, with immediate effect. And there's been a statement from Tom Ryan saying, we closely monitored events as they unfolded this morning in relation to plans to contain the spread of this COVID-19 virus. We've been in daily contact with the experts in the HSE and Department of Health since the start of the outbreak. We'll continue to take their advice regarding arrangements in the workplace and around staging games. Would like to reassure you that we will be doing all in our power to safeguard the health, safety and well-being of our members and players. I have meetings with the government and a call with Costa Banishtigta later this afternoon. We'll be back in touch to clarify matters at the earliest opportunity thereafter. That's from Tom Ryan.
Right, that's a weird one, right? Putting it off, isn't it? Like saying, what do you need to meet the government? The government have just said that they're banning mass gatherings of people. Use a bit of your initiative and say, look, it looks like the games aren't going to go ahead. Don't make any plans. Dublin County Board have just done it.
Dublin GAA have done it. As just said to you, I can't see why. I just see every other county following suit until the 29th of March.
You could organise a conference call very quickly with the different members of course the Banishtigta, but unless he was waiting to get everyone in the one room.
Yeah, maybe that's it. So we'll wait and see anyway. So look, we're obviously these games could still go ahead behind closed doors. So like, I mean, we're not too sure. In Pádraig Joyce, another quote from Pádraig Joyce, he must have been at a media event this week, lads. But I did like this quote. He said, "We've won 4 out of 5 so far, so we're trying to get a league final to win it." You don't often hear managers coming out and saying, "We want to get to a league final and we want to win it." Yeah,
and again, it's refreshing to hear a manager speak like that, and particularly a new manager coming in. He obviously has an unbelievable playing record with his couple of All-Irelands too, but to be able to say that it is refreshing. It's nice for I suppose pundits and that to hear those words as opposed to the usual game by game and trying to improve on the things from the last game and cut out the things that didn't go so well the last game and control the controllables, etc., which they all have their place and purpose too.
The whole thing of them saying we want to get to a league final, we want to win it, is there's no excuses when they lose. He's not going to turn around and say, well look, we're trying to build our panel, you know, all this old bullshit that we're hearing from managers and taking the pressure off themselves. He's put pressure on himself.
The starting my earlier years with Dublin, you'd be training away, playing your couple of league games. A couple of the more established championship guys at that stage were certainly wintering well, and it was only by the end of the summer that these fellas kind of hit the ground running again. But the thinking was, and the philosophy was, and the norm was that it's only the league, it doesn't really matter. We ended up down in Division 2 at one stage. We did get back up, but I know when Pat Gilroy came in, he was trying to get us into a good habit of trying to win against the top teams, perform against the top teams, and again get into a routine and a habit of actually winning, and particularly some of the closer games, and that absolutely carries through to the championship, and that's where Pádraig Joyce is definitely getting at as well.
But Galway have the squad Galway have the squad to be able to have a tilt at the league, and then you know, to be able to recoup them for championship. And why wouldn't you want to have a tilt at the league? If you look at like Dublin have won it most of the last few years, Mayo won it last year, even the teams that have been in the final, I can't think of too many that got to a league final that had a bad championship on the back of it. So the precedent is there, like especially
didn't do Mayo too good last year. Now
we got to the semi-final still, like
hammered by Kerry, hammered by Dublin, and now we're falling
bringing back old rules. I don't think that's just because we won the league.
Are falling apart now this year on the back of that league. You're still celebrating that league, Conor. You're still celebrating that league. No, but like, I mean, I suppose this is it. Galway can put you down, Conor, this weekend. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, and look likely to put us down on the back of kind of their form coming into it and our form coming into it, and especially with it being at Pearse Stadium as well. I mean, I was about to say our record against Galway in Pearse Stadium isn't great, but our record against Galway in anywhere in the last few years, especially actually it's probably worse in Castlebar than anywhere. And the only time we've beaten them that I can recall in recent memory was down in Limerick, so I was out of Connacht completely. So like all the like form or all the timelines, like anything you can study go into a Galway win this weekend. And I suppose me and probably a load of other fans are holding out hope for another miraculous escape that Mayo have managed, and obviously not last year when we won it, but the few years beforehand, whether it was Kevin McLaughlin getting a last minute score against Tyrone, Kevin McLaughlin get a last minute score against Donegal to draw with Donegal and Ballybuffet. So that's what we're holding on out for hope at the moment, because some of our established players aren't close to coming back, and the players that Mayo have brought in that we might have hoped kind of hit form or kind of become established sooner rather than later, it just hasn't happened. So I still maintain hope that, like, because it's do or die for Mayo at this stage, that we might be able to pull out a result. But with my head rather than my heart, I'm saying Galway.
Ironically for Mayo, they struggled against the Kevin Walsh Galway system, and Mayo would much prefer to have seen Galway for the last 5 years play like they are now. Yeah. And now they're going in to play this Galway, and it's like, oh shit, I don't like this Galway. I don't like this Galway either. Especially
where they are in terms of their development, because like Galway a couple of years ago, if they came out the way that Mayo were at in 2017 and 2018, let's say, when Galway would have beaten us, I think we would have, even if Galway came out and played the style of play now they do now, Mayo probably would have been that bit stronger, that would be able to take them. Whereas now Mayo are at a level where defensively even we're not as solid as we used to be, and we lack that punch in attack as well. So like ironically, look, one way to maybe try and curb the threat of Galway this weekend would be to do what Galway have done against us in recent years, but I can't see us going that way either.
And I think what's great about this game for the Mayo players and for James Horan and the management is that it's effectively a knockout championship game, if you could treat it like that, and that adds its own bit of adrenaline to the guys, particularly some of the older fellas or the guys who've been around for a couple of seasons, and it's going to shit or bust. Like, if you don't perform and win, we're gone down to Division 2. And I think you'll get the best out of the players, and I think he'll actually learn most out of the players in this particular intense environment, because it is a knockout, so to speak.
Yeah. Would Mayo care too much if to enter Division 2? I know this is the longest serving Division 1 team and all the rest of it. Is it the end of the world to Mayo?
Not really.
They're making a bit more out of it. Like, Donegal have come up and down. It's done them no harm in the there's never been a panic from Donegal about it. They've still won Ulster titles on the back of it.
I think it's purely because of that record that it's been seen as potentially worse than it could be.
Some land-breaking event,
and that it's gonna that this is the thing that finally marks the decline of this great Mayo team. Whereas it's not necessarily, like we talked, I think it was last week, about the pattern that has developed in the league in the last few years. There's been an established top 6, let's say, and we would, like, you'd include Donegal and Tyrone in that, who have gone up and down in recent years, and don't see it as an absolute nightmare if they go down. And to be honest about it, while Mayo probably are on the way in a little bit, I would still, if we got relegated this year, I'd still absolutely fancy our chances to bounce back again.
Straight back up.
Do you know what I mean? So
now, if they got a few lads back, I still think that Mayo team that's been playing in the league this year, it's not good enough. Like, it's not good enough to stay in Division 1.
I'd agree.
You know?
But it's about 8 regulars out of the team.
I think we counted them between Jason Doherty, Chris Barrett, Killian O'Connor, Shamie O'Shea, Donny Vaughan, Colin Boyle's gone for the season, Brendan Harrison's been gone for most of it. I mean, they're they mightn't be at the peak of their powers anymore, but they're still absolutely frontline players.
Gibbons,
and crucial.
Not Gibbons, the midfielder. Did you mention him?
Not Tom Parsons. Oh, Matty Ruan. I forgot about Matty Ruan as well, actually. Yeah, so crucial to, as I said, a lot of them maybe are just a little bit past their peak, but they're still absolutely crucial to this Mayo team and the identity of this Mayo team. So who knows, like the way things are going, this could be postponed and give them lads extra time to get back. And it could be the
great escape from the coronavirus, right? So, like, I mean, it's definitely hard to know, but it doesn't, like, 8 months ago in Limerick, Mayo beat Galway convincingly. It's mad that, you know, they were by far the better team that night. Galway were only hanging on, to be honest with you, and I was down at it. Galway looked like a tired team. They looked like a jaded team, come to the end of Kevin Walsh' run. You know, just they didn't have any spark about them. Mayo looked like, oh, here we go again, running through the qualifiers, big team. And within the space of 8 months, without much football being kicked, Mayo went to the Super 8s, got beaten twice heavily by Kerry and Dublin. And now we're back into the league. And it looks like it's completely flipped. That Galway look like the fresh, the dynamic team. And Mayo look like the kind of tired team run out of ideas.
Well, you probably nearly answered everything in what you said there, Woody, where Kevin Walsh was coming to the end of his tenure. The guys were probably fatigued in playing that particular way, not knowing their personal relationship with Kevin Walsh. I'm sure they're all fond of him, but no more than a teacher or a parent, after a while, it was the same voice the whole time. You know, the message isn't as strong, and that's what happened. I think the same happened up in Monaghan as well, Malachy O'Rourke. Porrick Joyce coming in, the record he has as a player, his flamboyant offensive style as a player, that's obviously transferring into the lads. He's given them a freedom to play, express themselves. They're extremely fit. Looking at them wherever he did over the winter, they've certainly hit the ground running, and it's just a newness, a freshness, and guys are enthused by the new coach coming in, and some of the more talented guys from Galway who underperformed last year, or the last couple of seasons. With the new manager coming in, it's an opportunity to actually impress him, and we all want to impress the manager. So they're obviously again hitting the ground running. I would fear for Mayo in terms of James Horan. I think going back in, he got a good bounce initially. If they do get relegated, and again I know they're missing players, he'd be going into his 3rd year in Division 2. It could be an opportunity then to develop some of these guys coming out under 2021, get a bit of experience and be more competitive, and you would certainly bet on them coming back up if that's the case. But what does he do then? He'll have another 3 years done.
I think it's a 4-year term.
This
is second year, isn't it?
Second
year,
it'll
be 3rd year next year. Yeah.
So it's a big commitment, but as a manager as well. But anyway,
he is trying to turn it. He is trying to bring new players in. But at the same time, last game was the first game that we saw Aidan O'Shea more in being put into the full forward line a little bit more. Conor and Keith Higgins was moved centre forward. Finally, let's see something new. Let's change things around. I don't mind. Keith Higgins might be not tight enough to play in the full back line, but as a middle third player, he's still got he's a good straight line runner, and he's effective. Still don't think with his back to goal he's that effective, but
he played the first half of the 2013
final.
He was good,
And you know what happened in that 2013 final? He was brought back to mark somebody in the second half, Conor Ger, and then I think was Conor Ger concussed towards the end, and then Keith Higgins stayed.
He missed him.
He stayed back in half because I remember he broke the line. Literally the first minute that All Ireland final, he broke the line. He hit the post. But I think
broke Ger's line as
well.
I know. How fast is he, Ger?
He is fast.
I know he's lightning fast,
and he still has that pace. I think I could have been saying to you that his man marking abilities have kind of have gone down a little bit in the last few years, and actually the game against Dublin in the Championship last year was the first time I can remember Keith Higgins actually not starting a game for Mayo that he was fit and available for. So I think just in terms of Keith Higgins alone, I think going forward this season, I think that could be something you see more often. Him kind of used around the middle as a line breaker as opposed to a traditional man marker. Let's say at the back. Yeah. And I think specific circumstances against Kerry, it was a gale force breeze. I think Mayo were something like 8 points down at half time, and they just had to kind of revert to that running game and trying to get line breakers, and I think Keith was effective apart from his miss at the end, which wasn't great. But yeah, in terms of something new, I think what James Horan has tried to do in terms of something new is that personnel, but it's been a real mishmash in terms of he's brought lads on for a half, and then James Carr, for example, I think was taken off at halftime 3 games in a row. Tommy Conroy's been given halves. Jordan Flynn, well, because he's got a couple of red cards, hasn't seen full 70 minutes a lot of the time as well. So I think we've said this as well before. It's really tough for young players to come in when they're coming in with a batch of young players as opposed to coming in with maybe 13 established players.
Needs most obviously with all the lads out.
That's just the way it's been.
Yeah, I do think that because they've no huge strike forwards, that the running game isn't going to suit them so much anymore, because they're nearly always ending up at a situation where the other team have players back. I do think a focus on moving the ball faster through the foot will definitely help their forwards up there, Well,
and I'd agree with you, and I'm just thinking, probably question, Conor, for you then, even though it's your show, Wooly, but no, just Aidan O'Shea, is he hampered because of his versatility, that he doesn't always know where he's playing consistently? And I'm just thinking of, I'm not going to say put him in the same bracket as David Clifford, right? But he's an extremely talented footballer, Aidan O'Shea. But Aidan O'Shea in the full forward line, two-man full forward line, the way Kerry are trying to play, and just leave him up there, he's going to win 70% of the ball. He's not going to win everything, but he's probably going to win 70% of the ball, you'd like to think, and just get him up there causing bother for fellas, and let the younger lads do all the damage around the middle, all the run for.
Well, I thought that might happen when the advanced mark came in, but I think we've discussed this before as well, Willie, but I wouldn't necessarily see Aidan O'Shea as that man either, because the comparison that's always been made with Aidan O'Shea, because they're similar in age, they're similar in stature, and they're similar in their influence in the team, was Michael Murphy, but he was never Michael Murphy. He never had the scoring power of Michael Murphy, maybe bar that season in 2015 where he scored that goal against Donegal, scored 3-4 or something against Sligo. But that created a false impression of what Aidan O'Shea is. Aidan O'Shea, to me, I think you agree, Willie, is his best position is 11. His best position is centre forward. He provides that little bit of physicality in attack. He's not as mobile as the most mobile midfielders, let's say. So sometimes that maybe slight lack of mobility can be exposed. But like when he's at 11, he can be involved. He can be breaking up play. He can be getting turnovers, and he can be linking that play between midfield and between full forward line. And because he's playing 11, there's the option the odd time go in 14 for 10-15 minutes or go back around midfield for 10 or 15 minutes. But like the thing is, this year Mayo can't afford to have Aidan O'Shea anywhere but midfield at the moment, because tried to bring Tom Parsons back, he's been taken off in 2 games at half time. Stephen Cohen has played there.
Seamus O'Shea's not back.
Matty Ruan's not back, so Aidan O'Shea has had to play there. And I think Mayo suffered both in terms of not having those midfielders, but also not having Aidan O'Shea at 11, as well as just to go back to kind of the kicking game that would benefit Mayo. The loss of Andy Moran is an obvious thing, and the loss of Jason Doherty as ball winning forwards that we don't have, and it just goes to show this attack, Mayo have struggled so badly for scores, and it just goes to show how much that Mayo attack has relied on those two players in the last few years. Yeah,
no, definitely, you're completely, I think 11 is his position, and throw him in at 14 for 10 minutes in both halves, and to keep the other team guessing. So the last thing you want is to have it so obvious that you can plan for it. You want to have them going, right, well, shit, he could be in there now. Am I marking him now or what? These kind of conversations. So you have to keep them guessing. Like, spare a thought for poor young Oisin Mullen, who's going to mark Shane Walsh this weekend after marking David Clifford in the last game. And I was just thinking, are they trying to send him to Australia? He's going for trials in April. And would you be thinking, I'm not staying around here to mark these fellas every week. I'm a full back. Usually a corner back comes in and marks these good forwards. He's actually getting the job. Another thing that I just want to talk about here, lads, before we move off it, is Galway. And their team is picked, which is fantastic. And I'm looking at the Galway team now, and I'm saying I can name 13 of their starting team for the championship. Isn't that the way it should be? Towards the end of the league, you should be getting to a point where you know your team. I'm tired of looking. I look at that Mayo team now. Again, we have to keep putting this in the context of James Horan's hands are tied, and he's been decimated. But at the same time, everyone says the league is for experimenting. There's 7 games. The first 3 games are for experimenting, 4. And I'm talking about let 4 in one game, 4 in another game, 3 in another game, 3 in another game. What's that? 6. That's 14 new players you've tried out for a full game without dismantling your team massively. And now you've got game 5, 6 and 7 to pretty much be nailing it down. Do you know what I mean? So, you look at the Galway team picked this weekend. Conor Gleeson in goals. He's going to be their goalie. Your full back line, Sean Kelly, Sean Mulcairn and Johnny Heaney. That's going to be their full back line. Their half back line is Gary O'Donnell, John Daly and Killian McDade. I'd say Liam Silk will come in for Gary O'Donnell, and that'll be their half back line. Midfield, Ronan Steed and Tom Flynn. That'll be their midfield. Half forward line, Eamon Brannigan, Damien Comer, Michael Daly. That's their half forward line. Full forward line, Rob Finnerty, Shane Walsh, Adrian Varley. Ian Burke could come in for Adrian Varley. Paul Conroy could come in for Adrian Varley. That place is probably up for grabs. There's their team. We're in round 6. Is that not the way it should be, Ger?
Yeah, yes or no, right? And again, depending on where you're coming from, and Pádraig Joyce's starting point is trying to change habits and get guys into a good run of form and winning games and beating and performing against the top opposition. So come championship, there's not that big of a fear factor, and you realise that, you know what, we're not that far behind these fellas, or we're the same as these fellas. We just got to go out and do it. If your team is too settled, then.
But I'll put it this way: in a manager's first year, when he tries out a few players, should he not be landing on his team towards the end of the league? I'm not saying, right, so say if you're in your 4th year and you know the players well, like James Horn can experiment, he might know his team come championship, but for your first year with the team, should you not be settling on a team by the end of the league? You like a good chunk of them.
Well, you should, and I do agree with your point. Say Daisy Farrell coming in is probably somewhat different. The new manager coming in, and he's played all sorts of different fellas, but I could name the 13 of Dublin's 15 team as well, and so could you guys.
Jim Gavin's team, do you think he might try to change it? You know, he's probably in a different situation as well.
He is, but some of the guys he's tried to bring in aren't at the level that's required. But in fairness, he's having a look at fellas. Like we're saying, he's trying 3 or 4 fellas a game, but for me, certainly they're not quite there yet. If they will get there, and it's going to be very close to the other team. Yeah. No, it's a fair point. If it's an established team, you're in your 3rd or 4th year managing, you want to keep guys on their toes, but it comes down to what do you have available too. And I know we've talked about Mayo for a while at this stage. If you can develop a couple of guys in each position, keep it competitive, well then, you know, that's going to bring about stronger team success. In Galway's case, new manager, he is trying to find his team. You can understand what he's trying to do. I think, again, naming the team in advance of the weekend is as kind of pundits or GAA supporters, it actually adds value to the whole thing, because you can actually have a proper chat about what's going on, and he hasn't moved away from that starting 15 that I can think of.
Well, he has experimented, but he hasn't experimented to a point where, you know, he's gone crazy. I'd say he just had a good idea in his head before he came in what way he wanted to go.
Yeah, and part of the experimentation he's done is kind of like he's playing, like, when you named out that full backline, it was Sean Kelly and Johnny Heaney are going to be their championship full backline. Yeah. You never would have said that before the start of the league. No. So it's not like it hasn't been, let's say, as dramatic in personnel, let's say, as Dublin has, but definitely in terms of getting the right personnel to play that style of football, or switching them around. Like I definitely wouldn't have seen that. And just to go back to your earlier point, I think with the 13 and the 15, I was thinking of Peter Cook, or is he injured?
He's away travelling.
He's away
travelling.
That was the only
Duggan
one.
is the other lad
Duggan,
that's been around. I'm not think he's injured. Yeah.
So that was it. But like
Keane Darcy has been getting a few games. The big fella.
I kind of would agree with you in that. Like, surely the whole purpose of experimentation in the first place is to arrive
at what you want. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I do think every situation is different.
But like, generally speaking, you're right. Yeah.
Say for Mike Quirk and Laois. Now, we should be seeing his team this weekend. He's pretty, you know, his team for the championship as much as possible. And in round 6, you shouldn't be trying a lad out. Like, at what point are you going? These should be 6 and 7 should be pretty much close to championship games.
Well, and again, a new manager coming in, and Mike Quirk, his profile within Laois maybe wouldn't be as what's the word I'm looking for, but as stable maybe, or as
legendary,
as yourself in Laois, or Joyce in Galway. So he's certainly keen to get a squad together very, very quickly. Now, I thought he's actually missed a good opportunity to relegate your near rivals Kildare, but the previous week, but that's gone now.
We were a long way off relegating them, I can tell you that. A long way off.
Again, the likes of Mike Quirk, it does come down on the situation that you're in. But see, Dublin don't need to have their championship 15 until the Super 8s, you know.
Yeah,
true. The Leinster Championship is their warm up.
Galway do need to have it. Mayo do need to have it. But that brings in championship structures and
we'll have to do a few bonus shows of championship structures. God, I don't think we'll have too many listens
Parts
for that.
1, 2 and 3.
Everyone's done with championship structures. Right, okay, and we're done with part 2. We'll be back in part 3 and we'll take a look at some other games. Okay, so obviously the big one in Division 2, lads, is Armagh versus Roscommon. The winner of this pretty much guaranteeing themselves a place in the final, you'd imagine. and they'll go up to 9 points. So they put themselves in a really strong position. They're the two big teams. They're the two teams most people would have tipped to get out of the division. I think you boys did. I went for Kildare, stupidly. Armagh have scored 3-14 the last day against Fermanagh, hammered them. Missed about 4 or 5 goal chances and put other ones into the goalkeeper's hands. They've scored 773 in 5 games. Like, I mean, they really are the Galway of Division 2 at the moment. That slight bit of inconsistency still haunting them. I don't know what you put. Rian O'Neill was talking at a media thing today. He says we're getting good performances and we're getting that consistency. We're getting games where we're starting well and not seeing them out. So it's all about getting the consistency across the board. And I suppose their inconsistency is Laois, who's their complete bogey team. And for about 15 minutes against Westmeath, they switched off and conceded 2-1 and went from a really comfortable position to lucky to draw it. I'm just wondering how they were pretty young. They have a lot of young players. How you get that? Is consistency an attitude thing? And is an attitude thing, like the top players usually have good attitudes. Do you know?
Yeah, it's a mindset. Probably encapsulates a couple of values or ways of thinking, and attitude being one of them. But you look at, again, the Kildare game and the 2 games you mentioned, Wooly, where
Laois and Westmeath are the 2 hiccups.
The 2 bogey teams, like they have been doing pretty well. Again, what I would have enjoyed about Kieran McGeeney and some of his comments, I know we spoke about them here too. He seems very honest with himself and the management team and how they're trying to set up for one of those games, and that seems to be transferring onto the likes of the young players like Rian O'Neill. And I think I read down further into that piece where he was talking about Rian was talking about his performance the last day. He says, I only actually turned up for 15 minutes in the 70 minutes, so there's another 55 minutes where I was quite poor and I need to try to improve my game that way, which is a good maturity. But attitude, it's probably mindset, developing a habit that regardless of who you're playing, that you're trying to do the same things week in, week out. You're trying.
And
to
is that just drilling that home in meetings? Like, is that just keep talking about this, keep focusing on it, not switch off, keep the concentration all the way through, doing a bit of video work. Look, you switched off there, we can't have that. Try to have the players policing it themselves on the field, all those things. Yeah,
you know, say on the field of play, fellas see red mist as I have myself during the career. But I used to have to work on that then with a couple of visuals, 1 or 2 things strapped to my wrist to try to re-engage the logical side of my brain. So the logical, the emotional side of your brain. So in the same way where a game is going well for you or not going well, you can just totally switch off and you don't even realise it's happened because you're human. And it's trying to be aware of that fallibility that we have. But also some of the leaders on the field, when they see this happening, if there's a couple of plays where guys are trying a 40-yard crossfield ball which wasn't part of the setup at all, guys need to be getting on to each other and say, listen, let's go back to the game plan, stick to the plan and stick to the process without copying Jim Gavin's cliche. But that's actually what works well with the top performing consistent teams, as opposed to the teams that show brilliance and then the next week or the next part of a game they're like, what happened here, like, you know.
Yeah, because against Westmeath they conceded a goal and then conceded another one pretty quickly, and you don't see the top teams really that happening to them.
No, they don't. And if they do concede the first one, it's a case of, well, very, very quickly what happens. And the more mature a team is, you don't even need to discuss it with one another as a group. You just kind of understood that, well, the reason we bloody conceded this goal is because too many of us pushed forward in the previous attack, where that's not what we talked about beforehand, or wherever it was, and that you adapt and you think really, really quickly, and you change things. But there might be an kick out then as well, that or set play that you'd have practice in training, and that's the one then you go to, and guys know, okay, the goal's gone in, we won't get overly emotional about it, but we're going into this set play now where fullback goes that way, he goes that way, and all of a sudden oh yeah, we're back in the game again.
You're back in the game.
Back in the
You're
game
on the
again.
ball, because
Yeah,
there's always the case. You always remember playing wing back for Laois, and you'd be after conceded a big score, and it was Fergal Byron's kicking it out, and they all went long then, and you're just saying to yourself, please, Garvin or Clancy, catch this.
Yeah.
We need this one. And you shout at them and you say, Garvin, come on now, and you make eye contact and you say, we need this. Do you know what I mean? Instead of just having a plan to actually guarantee you're going to...
Well, that was the plan.
Sometimes you really need that ball. This is a vital ball that we have to win.
Yeah, it is a vital ball, and I think across the board the percentage, the percentage success rate of winning the opposition kick out is decreasing the whole time. If you start to look at games, because keepers are now trying to keep possession, they are going a bit shorter. Excuse me. Was it Byron's Kidden goal for the Least 20s last day? Or?
Yeah, Byron's young fella.
Yeah, very good. Like, I think again he was in 82 or 83% of winning their own kickouts. It was only the few that he actually did go long that they lost. But it's just the way the game's gone. But see, if you have a plan, right, where a goal goes in or the crap hits the fan, well, we talked about this could happen, and based on this scenario, here's what we're going to do. And then so there's no panic.
It's important psychologically for that panic.
It's all psychology. And
what did you have on your wrist that took you out of the mist and into the light?
Calm down.
Well, Caroline Kurz, who great lady, great Sligo lady, does an awful lot of great work, sports psychology.
Yeah. She's either brilliant or very lucky with the teams she gets with, because they all win All Ireland. So either she's brilliant or she's
knows how to pick a team.
She knows how to pick a team.
Well, that's strategy too. Like you want to be going into a team where there is a chance of success too.
Yeah.
But she wanted me to write some stuff on my wrist and all that. But eventually, I said that's a load of bollocks. So I said put a bit of white tape on there and put it in really tight. And she says to me, if you feel like you're going to lose the head, just kind of have a look at the white tape or just kind of pull at it or something like that,
Right.
And just to keep you focused. But
so it's just like some sort of trigger to snap it out of it.
And
did you think it worked? Did you use it?
Well, I tell you, the biggest thing that helped me change was that if you keep getting sent off, you won't be playing anymore.
Yeah. You won't keep your place.
You don't need a white tape to tell
me that. So Karen says we throw the white tape on. Now, some rugby guys, it depends. One thing works for another guy in terms of rituals or routines or superstitions.
Yeah.
Your superstitions, I mightn't. That's a load of waffle. That doesn't bother me. But if you didn't do them, I'm going to play crap. Oh my God. So fellas get used to, again, a routine and behaviour.
Exactly.
But a lot of the rugby guys, you see them, and the props, you see all sorts of stuff written on there.
Yeah. You can't take my opinion on this, because my opinion is an extreme, that's a load of bullshit. Will you cop on?
Yeah.
Will you toughen yourself up? And you don't. If you need that, you're weak. Now, I'm not right in saying that, because if it works for someone or if it doesn't work, whatever. That's why I was interested. I didn't think you were the type of fella to look at your wrist and go. But I still thought it was interesting if it distracted you maybe or something. I could understand that.
Second, yeah.
But if I don't know, what do lads write on it? Like, I mean, I don't even know. You see it, and sometimes you think it's a fad, like a new pair of boots.
I thought
they look cool on your
tactical wrist. Plays for lineouts or lineout calls or something like that.
Right.
Maybe, but maybe it is like you just have the tape there to pull on to hand it down.
Yeah. Write down next ball.
Next ball.
Maybe, like, are you?
All right, I'll do that.
Okay, yes, I must go for next ball.
Yeah, but again, it's about really what you need to do is. When you're faced with this scenario, here's the couple of things you worked on. So we're going to try these things. So there's no panic, and then it's just in your head. And when people panic, that's when all sorts of things happen. If you get skinned as a defender and the ball goes in the back of the net, you are going to say, "Fuck's sake," And but then straight away, okay, well, here's the kick out we're trying to work on.
Yeah,
we win the ball and up the field we go, and then I'm like, right, what did I do? How did your man get past me that time? Okay, he's pushing off his right, so I'll be ready for it the next time.
Yeah,
and then,
but then the best sports psychology that I've ever had has been flying fit and being well prepared.
Yeah.
That if you're flying fit, you know you can make that extra run. You can get rid of your man when he's drawing breath. You're gone again.
Yeah.
the confidence that gives you, and being prepared, like you said, having some tactics, having some plan, having something as you go, they're not ready for this. You walk into that game thinking, Jesus, we're really ready. That's a sports psychology, better than anything written on your on your wrist, or better than any of that nonsense.
But being reminded of that, I'm sure when you were like that, when you were flying fit, and the manager told you you're flying, you're gonna play hell with them that weekend, you'd be 10 feet tall after that.
Oh, Miko was great for that. Like, Miko was unbelievable with his sports psychology, was constant. Justin McNulty used to call it, everybody has to be positive here. Miko wouldn't be into that. Miko's just a positive man. So we'd play matches, and in hindsight they were stupid. It would be the A's versus the B's, and like, it's demoralising for the B team. We'd get hammered every time. Ross Muddley, you're flying it. This is right. Now Ross would be skinning the poor lad on the B team. The lad in the B team would know he's never getting on the team. He'd have no motivation to be tracking Ross. Jesus, Ross, you're flying it. So now Ross is hitting in 3-5 in the training. I remember I'd be marking Darren Rooney. One year I was on the B team, and I was playing wing forward. I scored a goal, and he wouldn't tell me I was playing great or anything. Darren Rooney, I wouldn't track Darren Rooney. He'd run up and score a goal. Score, Darren Rooney, you're flying it, lads. I told you, you're primed for this. And he'd keep telling you, you're primed for it. Everything we've been doing, look at you. Yeah. And the A team would beat the B team by maybe 20 points, and this A team would go off like we're flying. The only thing I thought about that, like, we'd be doing this coming up, potentially playing against Dublin, and we performed well against Dublin. But I always found when things went bad against us in a game, then, have they been rattled in the last 3 weeks? They've been hammering the B team, being told they're brilliant, and it's grand for the confidence. But is that's a brittle confidence then, because it's based on something that's not real?
Well, that's where Miko, who am I to question his, or who are we to question his style? But you can that's fine when you're managing an unbelievable Kerry team who've won numerous All Irelands, where it probably does come down to just a bit of belief when it comes to an All-Ireland final or semi-final. If you're managing it, I know you had a talented Leach group in fairness, Wooly. You also need to prepare for the opposite, where, look, if these do get to run on us, which they might get to run on us, here's what we're going to do. Yeah,
we never prepared for anything like that.
Yeah, so you do, but
never.
And that's why you guys go into themselves, and then the confidence drains, because you can only trick yourself so much that you are flying it. But sure, if you're kicking 3-4 or kicking whatever off a fella coming up out of minor, or a fella who got a phone call on Thursday, will come out on Saturday for an AB game, and you might get a chance to get your pair of shorts. Well, then that's a different story. Yeah. But no, you have to prepare for everything, like,
Yeah. No, you definitely do. And
well, if you look, and again, anyone listening, like, you put your few notes there together. For the show, if you come onto the show, I'm sure we'd get away with it, but because we're clever lads, I think. But
you'd be found out, you'd be bluffing a bit more after a few weeks.
After a few weeks, and fellas will see through that. And if you're not preparing properly, you do get caught out. Bernard Dunne, who was with us for a while, and people used to always ask, what does Bernard Dunne do?
Please tell us. I'm one of those people.
He was great at playing table tennis beforehand at Gibbs Hotel. He was very competitive. Bernard was all about what you described there. You've got the preparation done, you've organised your work in your school or college and family life to make sure that you're as rested and as prepared coming to training and putting the effort in, and there's no more to do, just go out and express yourself, and that's it. And if you've all those different things organised, brilliant. But there's also, you have to acknowledge that there'll be times in life where you're going to be sick, and that if I'm sick for a couple of weeks or I'm injured for a couple of months, and I'm back in the second round of the championship, but I've missed out on 2 or 3 months training, am I fit enough? You got to be able to talk yourself around that too. And Bernard was great. I found him great at that type of thing.
Right. Okay. So he more or less, what would you describe him as then?
A life coach.
Well, no, that was the description on him. But is that it? Have you got your personal life in order? Are you happy? Is that the questions he'd be asking you? Are you?
He it was never as formal as that.
Just have a chat with you.
It'd be just a chat and how we getting on and that grand, and you might be thinking about this or thinking about that, or you might have read something, or you'd be watching a boxing match, or and he'd be relaying stories to you about successful people or fights he had, and all the guy Bob Rotella, sports psychologist, American, he did
Park Harrington, I think.
Yeah, and there's he's written a few books. One of his books, How Champions Think. Rotella was speaking at the Pendulum Summit a couple of years ago, and so picked up the book afterwards. But it's basically all the characteristics that successful people have, and Bernard Dunne used to espouse them from his experiences as a boxer and preparing in high performance teams, with the Irish squad and as an amateur, and being around people who are successful, it just kind of rubs off you, and you're learning the whole time without it ever being. You sit down there and I sit down here.
Yeah,
never like that.
Having him around and being a world champion is no bad thing, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then you'd I would have caught up with him in his house a couple of times as well, in fairness, and had a couple of chats with him about life and everything else. And
it was more one-to-one than collective then, Ger?
Yeah, more one-to-one. And then if guys want to do an extra bit of fitness in the gym, the boxing, you go and do a half an hour as a little pump, and guys come back from injury, then you'd be in there with them, and
you do a bit of that as well.
But we'll go back to Pádraig Harrington and the sports psychology, but it's a clip then. I think Harrington was, I'm not sure which, was it the Open Championship, where it went to a kind of
sudden death with Garcia,
and he's waiting for Garcia to come in, and Harrington, Bob Rotella, his sports psychologist, went up and got 2 99s, and there's a picture of Harrington licking the 99 with Bob Rotella and the caddy, waiting for the final
before the playoff. Yeah.
Really.
So he was talking about that at the Pendulum Summit, and he says this is just about being relaxed. It's like we're in a place where we want to be. Playoffs happen, no big deal. Let's have an ice cream. It's a nice day, and we'll go and play in a few minutes.
He was still shitting it. He threw it away, and Garcia threw it away more than he threw it away.
Was that his first major, and then Garcia ended up winning his major at the Masters then a couple of years
last
later.
Year,
Yeah, no, that was a good. But psychologically, obviously, Harrington, after winning the first one, went on and won 2 more. That was a huge weight off his back. That's it. I don't know if I want to go back talking about Armagh Roscommon now.
It seems insignificant after all that.
We've probably run out of time a little bit. We'll just take a look through the other divisions, because we're going to focus on Armagh Roscommon. This is a game. It's on Air Sport at 6:30, and we've Kieran McKeever on Monday's show. So, Jesus, on Monday's show, here's me. Do we know if Monday's show is going ahead? I'd love to see the games this weekend go behind closed doors, and see how things go with that. I do take the player welfare side of it, but is Manny, what's in a backroom team? 60 people, and they're in separate dress. You're only really mixing with 30. If you're training, you can play.
Well, it's not an outdoor mass gathering of 500 people.
No,
so it falls within the.
It completely falls within it, way under it. In fact, you're talking maybe 60 people, and 30 interacting. Isn't that right? And 30 not interacting on both sides of the bench. No handshakes after the match, lads.
And even for the sake of
might suit some managers.
For the sake of giving us something to do, to watch it on TV rather than going nuts at home, for the weekend. Or
well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Right. So Division 3, lads. The other big game in Division 2, I think they're all big games now. Westmeath Laois, this is a big game because there's a pretty big rivalry between Laois and Westmeath. It might not be a national rivalry, but it is a rivalry between the two counties. Whoever wins that one will stay up. Clare play Fermanagh. I suppose if Clare win that, they're up to 6 points. They're not safe, but Fermanagh will be gone. And Kildare and Cavan. Cavan need to win that to keep pressure on Armagh Roscommon. I think Kildare will win that, and then the winner of Armagh Roscommon will go up. If Cavan beat Kildare, the winner of the Armagh Roscommon match might not certainly be gone up. That's kind of the way that works. In Division 3, Down play Leitrim. You'd imagine Down are going to win that one. I think, and who did Down play in the last game? I think Longford have to play Cork in the last game, and Down play. I'm not too sure Down play, but Down have 2 easier games at the end, and I think Longford have to play. They obviously play Derry away this weekend, and then are away to Cork. Although Cork will be through, so you don't know what kind of a team to put out. So still all to play for. We know Cork are gone through, and it'll be Down, Longford, or Derry that will meet them. And then Division 4. You have Carlow at home to Sligo. Carlow out of the mix. Sligo still in. That's all to play for. Limerick, Wexford is the big one in that one. You have 8 points versus 6 points. That's in Rathkeale. So if Limerick win that one, they'll go up. If Wexford win that one, then it's completely all to play for still in that division. And that's it, pretty much. It's pretty exciting division regarding league with 2 games left. Nobody has gone up yet, except for Cork. Cork are gone up, are they? Cork are the only team gone up with 2. And has there any team been relegated? I don't think any team has been relegated yet. Meath is the only team, so that's nothing, isn't it? With 2 games left, so it's been a very exciting league. Right, we'll leave it there, lads, because we're out of time and Cheddar's coming in here. We'll be back on Monday, or maybe not. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens. We'll talk to you whenever. Good luck.